Dagda Yeov agus tá fáilte romh is mis an Skelly Beag. Hello, and you're very welcome. I'm the little storyteller, and we have hit the mid of the month, which means that it is Patriot Insider time again for the committed club members this time, and that they will have received the audio recording of a story I wrote called "A Just Reward for Labours Given." Um, this segment actually comes from the Larg Ball Éireann, which is Ireland's kind of main manuscript of ancient kind of lore and mythology, and it actually taken from the segment which falls after the first Battle of Moytura, but before the second. So we are dealing with the aftermath of the war against the Firbolg for the arrival of the Tuatha Dé Danann into Ireland. They have established themselves. They're now beginning to kind of get things settled and get things up and going. And they have a king. They chose a king by the name of Bress because he was half Fomorian. So uh, there is some there are some people who have demonized the Fomorians in that they have actually written that they are debased and, mutated creatures, and there's some kind of horrific demon-like entity, and that is not true. That is not 100% correct, because we actually have Alotha, one of the Fomorian kind of chiefs. He comes into Ireland and has a relationship, has like a union with Eru, and it he's described as beautiful. He's described as like, this shining, beautiful man, so much so that when he goes to leave her, she weeps for the loss of his beauty. But at that point, he kind of tells her that, like, don't worry, you will have a kid, and you need to name him Bress, and he will be known as Bress, son of Alotha the Beautiful. So we then like see Bress mature, grow up. After we have the war against the Firbolg, Bress is the one who's chosen to kind of take the seat of the King of Ireland. And initially it kind of goes well, but then it begins to kind of twist. And the story that I have told, as I said, it's called A Just Reward for Labours Given. It's an exploration of an event that happens in the run up to the Second Battle of Moytura. So at this point, Dagda and a lot of the champions that have Tuatha Dé Danann have been placed in kind of like menial work. So Dagda is actually digging the fortifications at Rathbresh, which becomes known as Tara. And it's here that we find a segment which says that in Dagda's home, prevailing of his hospitality is a Fomorian bard or lampoon by the name of Cregin Bale. Um, and Cregin Bale is not the greatest of people in the world, and he actually threatens Dagda every night with a satire, which was serious business. He would actually defame the Dagda unless the Dagda gives up the three best portions of his meal. I know Dagda's doing heavy lifting, heavy labor every day, and he's kind of bound. He's caught in this position of hospitality where he kind of has to give over his food, but also this threat that if he doesn't, this bard who had very serious power, bards always did, would damage his honor, damage his reputation. And so it comes to a resolution when Angus Og, the young son, and Midder, the I suppose older son of the Dagda, both visit him, and we have this kind of escape really for the Dagda by placing three gold coins within the three best portions of the meal. Cregin Bale, being a noted glutton, whenever he got the portions, he would just consume them rapidly with no kind of regard. And upon the three gold coins, he chokes and dies. But this then leads to some pretty significant and impactful turning in the story, because Dagda is brought up before Bresh, and the king places a judgment of murder against the Dagda because of the death of Gretchen Bale in his household. Dagda is then claimed professes his innocence. He never laid a hand on Gretchen Bale, like he didn't do anything. Um, but Bresh insists that, like, his judgment will stand and Dagda has to die. Now, in the Irish tradition, there was a union between the rule of the king and the sovereignty goddesses of Ireland. And in this case, Bresh was married to Bridget, to Dagda's daughter. So not only is Bresh kind of having a go at Dagda because of someone he's placed digging the earthworks, digging ditches, it's also his kind of father-in-law. Um, but essentially, the judgment of the king has to be right, has to be fair. Otherwise, the balance between what is right and what is just will turn like ripple through the other world connection to the land, and the land itself would actually sicken and die. And we see this trend a number of different times in the Irish lore, that the rule of the land, the abundance of the land, the and the people, of course, is tied to right, honest, fair, righteous judgment at the upper echelons of power. So Dagda being in his position where he's had this wrong judgment placed against him, it's actually a pretty big deal, because the moment he proves that judgment wrong, he proves that Bress is giving poor judgment. And the line in it, he actually refers to it was referred to in the purposes of law as the kingly judgment. So a kingly judgment was one that was absolutely spot on. That is the right, that is correct judgment. But Dagda actually uses the words to kind of highlight the fact. And in the original story, he actually says the judgment you provided is a princeling judgment. So even there, he's actually saying that like you're not fit to be king. Um, as much as he can, he doesn't have the right or the position to just deny Bress as a kingship, because he was elected. He was selected to be in that king. But in that moment where Bress gets it wrong and proves that it's not a righteous judgment, it's not an honest judgment, it actually is the beginning of the toppling of Bress's power. And funny enough, the coffin nail comes a little while later, when a bard, I mentioned bards have a lot of power. A bard is hosted by Bress, but Bress doesn't give him hospitality. And so the bard warns him and says, listen, you put me off in a cold hut. You didn't give me a blanket. You didn't give me a decent bite to eat. You demanded my music and my performance, but you didn't make up for that. Uh, so I'm going to perform a satire, this kind of official decrying of you as unworthy. Um, and so the bard, as proper, gives Bresh a chance to make up for it, to avoid the satire by making honest recompense for honest work. Breast doesn't. And so the bard then goes forward and he says that, there is no hospitality in the house of Bresh. And when we go from a failed judgment, a princeling judgment, to no hospitality of all, in the hall of the king, in the hall of the person who is supposed to be the most aware and compassionate and caring of the people, the person who's supposed to always give good hospitality and always give right judgment, that really is the breaking of Bress's power, which then leads us down the road to the second Battle of Moytura. So I hope that this gives you a little bit of an insight. The story is called A Just Reward for Labours Given. It deals specifically with the segment of judgment, and my view, my kind of exploration of how that interaction would go between the Dagda and Bresh. And I do hope you enjoy that story. So as ever, thank you very, very much to all of my patrons. I'm really grateful to be able to do this work, to kind of explore this ancient Irish folklore and kind of give it new voice as much as I can. Gaurav Mahagas, thank you very much. Agus Slán. Goodbye.